Most of us imagine a wedding as the shining peak of a love story, a moment wrapped in lace, trembling vows, and the promise of forever. It's the day you stand before everyone who matters and swear to be loyal, honest, and true. But life doesn't always honor the fairy tales we script. Sometimes it takes those perfect moments and breaks them apart in ways you never saw coming. And sometimes the truth, raw and brutal, shows up right at the altar, in front of everyone. Today, I want to share a story that will make you rethink trust, loyalty, and the red flags we quietly brush aside. It's about secrets, consequences, and the moment karma finally knocks. So, grab your coffee, settle in, and let me tell you about Jasmine, Peter, and a wedding day no one, not even the bride, saw coming. Peter and Jasmine had been together for 4 years. 4 whole years. Think about that for a second. That's 1,460 days of building a life together, making memories, planning a future. They weren't just dating casually. They were engaged, committed, the real deal. Everyone who knew them thought they were perfect together. You know the type, the couple that makes everyone else believe in love. Jasmine would light up whenever Peter walked into a room. Their families adored them both. Holiday dinners, birthday parties, family gatherings, everything just clicked. Both sets of parents were thrilled about the upcoming wedding. Everything was falling into place like a perfectly arranged puzzle. Jasmine? She was head over heels. She truly believed she'd found her soulmate, the person she'd grow old with. In her mind, Peter was it, the one. She'd look at him and see their entire future. Kids playing in the backyard, Sunday morning pancakes, growing old on a porch somewhere, holding hands and reminiscing about the good old days. But here's the thing about secrets. They're like cracks in a foundation. You might not see them at first, but they're there, spreading, weakening everything built on top of them. And Peter had a secret that was about to bring the whole house crashing down. While Jasmine was busy planning their wedding, choosing flowers and taste-testing cakes, Peter was living a double life. For 2 entire years, half the length of his relationship with Jasmine, he'd been having an affair with another woman. Her name was Annabelle. 2 years. Let that sink in. That's not a one-time mistake. That's not a moment of weakness. That's a calculated, ongoing deception. Every time he kissed Jasmine goodnight, every time he told her he loved her, every time he looked into her eyes and promised her forever, he was lying. Now, you might wonder, why didn't he just leave? Why string Jasmine along if he had feelings for someone else? Well, Peter had his reasons, and they weren't exactly noble. See, Peter cared a lot about his image. He didn't want to be seen as that guy, the cheater, the unfaithful one, the man who couldn't keep his promises. In his mind, Annabelle was just temporary, a distraction, a flame that would eventually burn out. He figured he could have his cake and eat it too, then quietly end things with Annabelle when the time was right, and ride off into the sunset with Jasmine, his reputation intact. Nobody would ever know. But life has a funny way of forcing our hand, doesn't it? Just a few weeks before the wedding, when the invitations had already been sent, the venue booked, the dress hanging in Jasmine's closet, Annabelle dropped a bombshell that would change everything. She was pregnant, and Peter was the father. Can you imagine that phone call? That moment when your entire world shifts on its axis? Peter felt everything all at once. Panic, fear, confusion, maybe even a twisted sense of responsibility. Because regardless of how he felt about Annabelle, Regardless of his plans with Jasmine, there was now a child involved, an innocent life that didn't ask to be born into this mess. And for Peter, that changed the calculation entirely. He kept thinking, my child can't grow up without a father. I can't be that guy who abandons his kid. It's almost funny in a dark way. He was willing to be the guy who abandons his fiancée, but not the guy who abandons his child. So Peter made his choice. He decided he would leave Jasmine and be with Annabelle. Suddenly, the woman he'd seen as a passing flame became the woman he'd build a future with. They made promises to each other, vows of love and commitment. They'd be a family. They'd raise this child together. It would all work out. There was just one problem. One person who had no idea her entire life was about to implode. Jasmine. Picture this. A beautiful venue, decorated exactly how Jasmine had imagined it. White flowers everywhere, soft music playing, sunlight streaming through the windows, guests filling the seats, dressed in their best, cameras ready to capture the moment. Jasmine's friends giggling with excitement, her mother dabbing at her eyes, already emotional. And Jasmine herself? She was radiant, absolutely glowing. This was her day, the day she dreamed about since she was a little girl. She stood there in her wedding dress, you know, the one she'd tried on dozens of times, the one that made her feel like a princess, waiting for the moment she'd walk down that aisle to the man she loved. The ceremony was supposed to start at 2 p.m. By 2:30, people were starting to whisper. By 3 o'clock, the whispers had turned into concerned murmurs. Where was the groom? Was there traffic? An accident? Surely there was a reasonable explanation. Jasmine tried to stay calm, but you could see the anxiety creeping in, that knot forming in her stomach, that voice in the back of her head asking questions she didn't want to answer. Something was wrong. She could feel it. Then her phone rang.
Jasmine's hands were shaking as she answered. Everyone in the bridal room went silent, watching her face for clues. Hello? Jasmine? It was Peter. And just from the way he said her name, she knew. She knew something terrible was coming. Jasmine, I'm so sorry. His voice was trembling, breaking. But we can't get married. I love another woman, and we're running away together. Time stopped. The room started spinning. Jasmine couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This had to be a joke. A nightmare. This couldn't be real. She's pregnant, Peter continued, the words tumbling out now like he needed to get them all out before he lost his nerve. We're having a baby. My child won't grow up without a father. I'm so sorry. I wish you happiness. And there it was. In less than 30 seconds, everything Jasmine had built, everything she'd believed in, everything she'd planned, gone, destroyed by a phone call. She should have hung up, but shock makes us do strange things. Instead, her voice came out, strong and clear, despite the tears streaming down her face. How can you be such a scoundrel, Peter? You're despicable. You deceived me this entire time. Peter stammered out an explanation. Or maybe it was an excuse? I'm so sorry, Jasmine. I didn't want it to be like this. I was in a relationship with Annabelle, but I never left you. I had confused feelings, but now I know I love her. I'll live with her and my child. Forgive me. I hope you find another man who truly loves you. It wouldn't be fair to keep deceiving you and myself. Fair? Fair? Jasmine almost laughed at the absurdity. Nothing about this was fair. Through her tears, she managed to say, "I did everything for you, and this is how you repay me? Okay, I'll just tell you one thing. In this life, everything is paid back. One day, life will charge you for what you did to me. This isn't a curse, it's fate." And she hung up.
Balance strength with vulnerability. Sound like someone trying not to fall apart. Can you imagine having to walk out there, having to face all those people? Your family, your friends, your grandmother who flew in from across the country, your college roommate who rearranged her entire schedule to be there, and tell them it's all over. But Jasmine did it. She took a deep breath, wiped her tears, held her head high, and walked out to face the guests. Still in her wedding dress, still beautiful, but absolutely shattered inside. "Everyone," her voice echoed through the silent venue, "it is with great sadness that I have to tell you there will be no wedding today. The groom broke up with me over the phone and ran off with his pregnant lover." You could hear people gasp. Some started crying. Others looked around in confusion, like surely they'd misheard. "Peter is a disgrace," Jasmine continued, and you could hear the pain mixed with anger in her voice. "He deceived me and made me look like a fool. I'm so sorry to all of you. You're free to go. If you want to take your gifts back, that's fine." The pity in everyone's eyes was almost worse than the heartbreak itself. Peter's own family rushed to Jasmine, apologizing profusely, saying they didn't raise him this way, that they never wanted this to happen. And you know what? Jasmine could see they were genuinely devastated too. They weren't at fault for their son's choices. So, still wearing that wedding dress, that symbol of all her hopes and dreams, Jasmine left the venue supported by her family. She'd walked in expecting to leave as a bride. Instead, she left as a woman whose entire world had just collapsed.
While Jasmine was drowning in grief, Peter and Annabelle were boarding a plane to another state. They wanted to escape the judgmental stares, the gossip, the whispers. They wanted to start fresh where nobody knew what Peter had done. And for a while, they played house. They had their baby, they set up their new life. On the surface, it looked like Peter had gotten exactly what he wanted: a family, a clean slate, a new beginning. But Jasmine fell apart. And I mean really fell apart. Depression hit her like a freight train. There were days she couldn't get out of bed. Days where the weight of the betrayal felt so heavy she couldn't breathe. How do you move forward when the person you trusted most in the world reveals they were lying to you for years? Her family was incredible. They held her when she cried. They sat with her in silence when words weren't enough. Her friends showed up, day after day, refusing to let her face this alone. But even with all that support, the pain was overwhelming. Jasmine started therapy. It wasn't easy, therapy never is. But slowly, session by session, she started to unpack the trauma, to understand it wasn't her fault, to believe she deserved better.
3 years. That's how long it took for Jasmine to really start feeling like herself again. 3 years of therapy, of crying, of healing, of slowly rebuilding the pieces of herself that Peter had shattered. She threw herself into self-improvement. She started running in the mornings, feeling the pavement under her feet, the wind in her hair, reminding herself that she was still alive, still moving forward. She hit the gym, finding strength she didn't know she had. Not just physical strength, but mental toughness. Every rep, every mile, every drop of sweat was proof that she was fighting her way back. She went back to school, took some courses, expanded her skills, and then she got a job at a new company, a fresh start, a chance to be someone other than that girl who got left at the altar. And that's where she met Nick. Nick was different from the start. He was the owner of the company where Jasmine worked, came from serious money,
and could have been one of those insufferable rich guys who looks down on everyone. But he wasn't, not even close. He was kind, humble. He treated the janitor with the same respect he showed his executives. He never flaunted his wealth or used his position to intimidate people. He was just genuine, real. The kind of person who makes you think, okay, maybe there are still good people out there. Jasmine became his secretary, and from day one, Nick treated her with respect. He never made inappropriate comments, never abused his power, never made her feel like she was anything less than a valued member of the team. He was fair with everyone. Didn't matter if you were the CEO's son or the intern who just started last week. Jasmine never hid where she came from. She was middle class, and she was proud of it. She'd worked hard for everything she had. And Nick respected that. Actually, he admired it. Over time, something started to shift. Nick would find excuses to talk to Jasmine. He'd linger a bit longer at her desk. He'd ask her opinion on things that probably didn't need her input. And Jasmine noticed. Of course she noticed. But she was terrified. Because the last time she'd let someone in, the last time she'd trusted someone with her heart, it had been ripped out and stomped on. She'd learned the hard way that love could be a lie, that promises could be broken, that forever sometimes means until something better comes along. So when Nick finally worked up the courage to ask her out, this confident, successful man who could have any woman he wanted, Jasmine felt torn. Part of her wanted to run, but another part of her, a small voice she'd been trying to ignore, whispered, maybe not everyone is like Peter.
"Hello, Jasmine?" Nick said one day, looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him. "Would you like to go out with me? Maybe hang out one of these days?" Jasmine was touched, honored even. Here was this incredible man asking her, little old her, on a date. Out of respect for him, for the kindness he'd always shown her, she said yes. But she kept her walls up. She wasn't looking for love, wasn't looking for a relationship. Men had proven themselves untrustworthy, and she decided that single life was safer. Lonelier, maybe, but safer. Nick noticed her distance, her guardedness, and instead of pushing, instead of trying to tear down those walls, he respected them. He didn't pressure her for more than she was willing to give. He just was there, consistent, reliable, patient. But that didn't mean he was giving up. If anything, Jasmine's walls only made Nick more determined. Not in a creepy way, but in a, I see something amazing in you and I'm willing to wait way. Their friendship deepened. Nick was falling harder every day. Finally, Nick decided to take a bigger risk. He invited Jasmine to dinner at his house, not a restaurant, his home. It was personal, intimate, vulnerable. And over that dinner, with candlelight flickering and soft music playing, Nick laid his cards on the table. "Jasmine, I've been in love with you since the first time I saw you. I can't get you out of my head. Will you be my girlfriend?" Jasmine's heart was pounding. This was everything she'd been afraid of. Opening up, trusting again. But looking at Nick, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, she felt something shift inside her. Still, the doubts crept in. "I'm very honored, Nick, but you come from a high position and I'm from a simple, humble family. I have no titles. I wasn't born with a silver spoon like you. Are you sure about this?" Nick smiled, and it was the warmest, most genuine smile she'd ever seen. "Jasmine, my parents were middle class, just like you. They fought hard to get where they are.
They taught me so many principles, so many values. Everything I am, I owe to them and their good upbringing. I love you, and I want to make you happy." And in that moment, Jasmine made a decision. She'd been nurturing feelings for Nick too. Feelings she'd been trying to suppress, trying to deny, because she was so scared of being hurt again. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to be brave. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll be your girlfriend." Nick's entire family welcomed Jasmine with open arms. His parents, his siblings, they all adored her. They saw what Nick saw, a woman of character, of strength, of genuine goodness, the kind of person who'd been knocked down but refused to stay down. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Peter was playing house with Annabelle and the baby. He missed his family terribly, but was too ashamed to go back, too afraid of facing what he'd done. So he stayed away, trapped in a life he'd chosen, but increasingly wasn't sure he wanted.
2 more years passed. Jasmine and Nick's relationship blossomed into something beautiful. They complemented each other perfectly. His confidence balanced her caution. Her authenticity grounded his ambition. They built something real, something solid, something based on trust and honesty. One evening, Nick invited Jasmine to his house. His whole family was there, which struck her as a bit odd, but she didn't think much of it. Maybe it was just a family dinner. But then Nick got down on one knee. The world went silent. Jasmine's heart stopped. In his hands was a beautiful ring, sparkling in the light. "Jasmine, will you marry me? Be my wife and the lady of my life?" And just like that, all the memories came flooding back. The last time someone proposed, the last time she'd worn a wedding dress, the last time she'd let herself believe in forever. Nick saw her face change, saw the joy mixed with pain, and his expression shifted to concern. "What's wrong, my love? Did I make a mistake? Tell me what's wrong and I'll fix it right away." "No nicks," Jasmine said, tears streaming down her face. Though whether they were happy tears or sad tears, even she wasn't sure. "You didn't do anything wrong, but seeing this ring, it brought back memories." Nick's mother leaned forward, her voice gentle. "What happened, my dear? Explain it to us. Whatever it is, we'll help." And so, for the first time, Jasmine told the whole story. Everything. The wedding that never happened, the phone call, Peter's betrayal, Annabelle, the depression, the 3 years it took to put herself back together. She laid it all out there, raw and honest and vulnerable. When she finished, the room was silent. Nick's family looked at her with a mixture of sadness, admiration, and something else. Understanding. Then Nick spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "My love, I know how you feel. I've been through that too." Jasmine's head snapped up. "What do you mean, Nick? Someone in your position, with your status, who has everything, you couldn't possibly have gone through that." Nick smiled sadly. "I was about to get married 3 years before I met you. My fiancé left me at the altar and ran away with an ex-boyfriend." Jasmine couldn't believe it. This successful, confident, amazing man had been through the exact same nightmare she had. "Everything you suffered, I also suffered," Nick continued. "I had depression. I cried myself to sleep. I lost the meaning in my own life. But thanks to my family, I recovered, and now I'm here. I know how you feel because I felt it too. I know the fear you're carrying right now, but I also know that not everyone is like the people who hurt us. Some people keep their promises." In that moment, looking into Nick's eyes, surrounded by his loving family, Jasmine felt something shift deep inside her. Fear didn't disappear. Fear never fully disappears, but it was joined by something stronger, hope. She took Nick's hand and, with absolute certainty, said, "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." 6 months later, everything was ready. And this time, there was no phone call, no secret affair, no last-minute betrayal. Nick stood at the altar, nervous and excited and so incredibly happy. When Jasmine walked down that aisle in her beautiful dress, he had tears in his eyes. Real tears, happy tears. The ceremony was perfect, not because it was fancy, though it was beautiful, but because it was real. Because the promises they made to each other meant something. Because they both understood the weight of those vows, having seen firsthand what happens when vows are broken. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Nick pulled Jasmine close and kissed her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because to him, she was. Everyone cried, happy tears this time. Jasmine's parents, who'd supported her through the darkest time of her life, were beaming. Nick's family, who'd welcomed her so warmly, were celebrating like she'd always been one of them. 3 months later, Jasmine discovered she was pregnant. When she told Nick, he literally jumped in the air with joy. They were going to be parents. They were going to build a family based on love and trust and honesty. Everything Jasmine had been denied 5 years ago, the wedding, the marriage, the pregnancy, the joy, she now had with someone who truly deserved her. Life, it seemed, had finally given her what she deserved. But what about Peter? Remember Peter? While Jasmine was building her dream life, Peter was about to discover that lies have a way of catching up with you. One ordinary day, Peter and Annabelle were at home when someone knocked on the door. Annabelle opened it, and her face went absolutely white. Standing there was a man named Blake. And from the way Annabelle reacted, Peter immediately knew something was very, very wrong. "I can't believe it," Annabelle stammered. "How did you find me? What are you doing here?" Blake's expression was intense, determined. "It doesn't matter how I found you. Where's our son? I want to see our son." Our son. Those 2 words hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. "Get out of here," Annabelle screamed. "Leave now." But Blake grabbed her, pulled her close. "It doesn't matter. I want both of you. You and our son. I love you both." And then he kissed her, right there in the doorway. Kissed her with passion and familiarity. That's when Peter walked in and saw them. "Annabelle, what are you doing with this guy? I want an explanation." Blake turned to Peter with this smug, sarcastic smile. "Oh, so you traded me for this guy? A guy who left his fiancée at the altar? And you're raising another man's child? What an idiot you are." Peter felt like he'd been punched in the gut. "What are you talking about?" Blake laughed, actually laughed. "That boy you're raising? He isn't your son. I'm the real father of that child. I can do a DNA test if you don't believe me. She didn't even tell me about the pregnancy. I found out through a friend." Peter's entire world collapsed in that moment. Everything he believed, everything he'd sacrificed, everything he'd left behind, it was all based on a lie. A complete and total lie. "How could you do this, Annabelle?" Peter's voice was breaking. "I left my future wife at the altar to be with you. I fled to another state. I left everything for you. And this is how you repay me?" Through her tears, Annabelle tried one last manipulation. "Think of the boy. He's not to blame for anything." But Peter was done. Absolutely done. "Enough, Annabelle. You won't manipulate me anymore. Here's the real father of this child. I'm not obligated to support a child that isn't mine. This house is in your name. I gave it to you as a gift, so you can keep it. but my financial help is over." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was filled with regret so deep it hurt to hear. "I regret leaving a wonderful woman like Jasmine for someone like you. I'm going back to my home state to find Jasmine and ask for her forgiveness. Your manipulation game is over, Annabelle. I never want to see you again. Get out of my life." Peter went to the bedroom, packed his bags, and left. He did stop to say goodbye to the boy because whatever else had happened, the child was innocent in all this. But then, he was gone. Annabelle and Blake were left standing there. Blake tried to embrace Annabelle, but she pushed him away. Furious that her scheme had been exposed, that her comfortable life was over. Peter got on a plane and flew back to his home state, back to face the consequences of his choices. And those consequences were brutal. His friends wanted nothing to do with him. "You left Jasmine at the altar, man. You're not the person we thought you were." They turned their backs, one by one. His family, they were devastated and ashamed. "We didn't raise you to be this person, Peter." The disappointment in their eyes was worse than anger. Everyone Peter approached, everyone he begged for information about Jasmine, they all turned him away. He was persona non grata, a pariah in his own hometown. Finally, he went to Jasmine's family. He showed up at their door, ready to beg, to grovel, to do whatever it took. They slammed the door in his face. And honestly, can you blame them? But Peter was desperate. He found one old friend, someone who still had a shred of pity for him, and begged for Jasmine's address. The friend hesitated, then sighed. "Fine, I'll give you the address. But Peter, you're not going to like what you find there." Peter didn't care. He had to see her, had to try. When Peter arrived at the address, his jaw dropped. It was a mansion, a gorgeous, expensive, obviously someone successful lives here mansion. His hands were shaking as he walked up to the front door and knocked. The door opened and there she was, Jasmine. Still beautiful, but different somehow. Stronger, more confident, more at peace. And very, very pregnant. "Peter," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "It's been a while, hasn't it? I haven't seen you since you left me at the altar and ran away with your pregnant mistress." Peter fell to his knees right there on the doorstep, tears streaming down his face. "Jasmine, my love, I came to ask for your forgiveness and a new chance to start over." Then his eyes fixed on her belly. "You're pregnant?" Jasmine smiled gently. "Yes, I'm 7 months pregnant. I'm going to be a mother." Peter felt like his heart was being ripped out all over again. "And your child with Annabelle? Aren't you the father?" "That child wasn't mine," Peter sobbed. "Annabelle deceived me. I wasn't the father. It was all a scheme, all a lie." For a moment, Jasmine looked genuinely sorry for him. "I'm sorry that happened to you, Peter. I truly am. But I'm married now, and happy. I met an amazing man who truly loves me, and as you can see, I'm going to be a mother." Peter was begging now, completely broken. "Jasmine, forgive me. Come back to me. We love each other. Annabelle deceived me. That child wasn't mine. I promise everything will be different. I'll never cheat on you or deceive you again. Now I know what you felt after discovering Annabelle's betrayal. Leave this guy. I'll even raise that child growing inside you as if it were my own. I'm willing to do anything to get back with you. I still love you. I know you're the woman of my life. I've never stopped thinking about you." Jasmine looked down at Peter, this man who'd once held her entire heart, who'd once been her whole future, and she felt nothing. No anger, no love, just a kind of peaceful indifference. "Peter," she said gently, "I forgave you a long time ago, but I don't love you anymore. You caused me so much pain and suffering. It took me years to rebuild myself after what you did. But now I'm truly happy. I have a man who values me, who chose me, who shows up for me every single day." Peter was still on his knees, still crying. "I'm sorry this happened to you with Annabelle," Jasmine continued. "I really am. I wish you find new love and that everything works out in your life. But Peter, don't come back here. My husband might not appreciate my ex-fiancé showing up at our doorstep. Goodbye, Peter. I wish you all the best. May God help you." And slowly, calmly, Jasmine closed the door. On the other side, Peter crumbled. He cried like he'd never cried before. Ugly, gut-wrenching sobs that shook his whole body. He remembered Jasmine's words from that terrible phone call 5 years ago. "In this life, everything is paid back. One day, life will charge you for what you did to me." She'd been right. Life had charged him, and the price was everything. Months later, Jasmine gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Nick was over the moon. Their family celebrated. There was so much love in that hospital room, so much joy, so much hope for the future. Jasmine had everything she'd ever wanted, just with a different person than she'd originally planned. And somehow, that made it even more precious, because Nick had chosen her every single day. He'd earned her trust. He'd proven his love through actions, not just words. Peter, meanwhile, had to face the reality of his choices. No woman wanted to date him. Word had spread about what he'd done. His family maintained their distance. His friends had moved on without him. He was alone. Truly, completely alone. Finally, unable to bear the judgment and isolation anymore, Peter went to the bus station. He bought a ticket to yet another city, another place where nobody knew his story. He was running again, just like he'd run with Annabelle all those years ago, except this time, he was running alone. In his wallet, he kept a photo. One of those engagement photos from back when Jasmine still looked at him with love and trust. He'd pull it out sometimes late at night and just stare at it, remembering what he'd lost, remembering what he'd thrown away, missing her. Always missing her. So, what's the moral of this story? What are we supposed to take away from all this heartbreak and karma and consequences? It's simple, really. Never trade a true love for someone who might betray and deceive you. Because when you do, the person who truly loved you may move on, and all you'll be left with is regret. See, love does endure all things. The Bible says that, and it's true. But all things means hardships, trials, struggles, difficulties, the normal challenges that life throws at us. It doesn't mean betrayal. It doesn't mean infidelity. It doesn't mean lies and deception. Real love is built on trust. And once that trust is shattered, once those vows are broken, putting it back together again isn't just difficult. Sometimes it's impossible. Peter learned that lesson the hardest way possible. He traded something genuine for something fake. He traded commitment for excitement. He traded a woman who loved him unconditionally for a woman who was using him. And by the time he realized his mistake, it was too late. The door had closed. Jasmine had moved on. And Jasmine, she learned that heartbreak doesn't have to be the end of your story, that you can be shattered into a million pieces and still put yourself back together, that the person who broke you doesn't get to define you, that there's life, beautiful, joyful, amazing life on the other side of betrayal. She learned that not all men are like Peter, that some people keep their promises, that love, real love, is worth waiting for and worth fighting for. Both of them got exactly what they deserved in the end. Peter got loneliness and regret. Jasmine got happiness and a family. Karma isn't always fast. Sometimes it takes years, but it's always watching, always keeping score. And eventually, everyone pays for their choices.